This video is gonna get so demonetized.
A, B, C, D, E, F, you and your mom and your sister and your job and your broke-ass car and that shit you call art. Fuck you and your friends that I'll never see again. Everybody but your dog, you can all fuck off.
This is my dog, Apollo. And actually, that short video kind of sums up who he is, I think. I rescued him 10 years ago from the street. We actually celebrated his gotcha day recently, 10 years of torture. And given that he was already a fully grown adult dog when I found him on the street, I don't know how many more good years he has ahead. So this is my last chance to make a video I always wanted to make, one where I name and shame him as he deserves. He is about 12, maybe 13 years old, and he's still a teenager. I walk him and we meet other dogs sometimes, and if he likes them, he will bark all excited and play and bark and show his sexy moves and pull his ears back. And there's always this moment in the conversation when the owners ask each other how old their dogs are. And when I say 12, I usually get an, "Oh, 12 months old," to which I reply, "No, 12 years old." And then I walk away with him, slowly spreading my peacock tail behind me as I leave them stunned. I am proud. And so is he. Well, he acts proud. Or whatever. He still plays like a 3-month-old puppy. I mean, there are days where I just can't, I'm tired, my back hurts, I'm sick or whatever, and he comes waving a toy in my face and has these puppy eyes. Seriously. There are moments where I'm like, geez, just come on, grow up, mature. But Apollo will never mature. He will just go from being a puppy to being old, just like that, and I will be devastated. Because there has never been any progression. If anything, given that when I found him, he was a fearful, pathetic, sad, and probably abused dog, the progression has been in reverse. He is becoming more and more puppy. He does look and act very young. Bless him. So, before I'm devastated, I'm going to shame him as he deserves, and I have my reasons for it. I've been doing it on social media for some years now, which actually led him to have a small but very dedicated fan base. And I've always wanted to write a book about him, because no photo or video can do him justice. But no book has been written yet, and as I said, Apollo is already sort of a senior. So this video is definitely not going to have any chronological or logical order. It's just going to be random thoughts about a very special dog. So, here's an introduction to who he is. You know, sometimes I think that if he had ended up in the wrong hands, they would have put him down. He growls more often than he breathes, and his biting threshold is somewhere around 0.0003%. He doesn't really bite to hurt, he snaps. And the fact that he has snapped only a handful of times within those 10 years is telling of how balanced I've been trying to keep his everyday life. Many things at home are revolved around what could possibly annoy Apollo, and at this point there's no effort really, it just happens naturally, because he's my dog, and he's an extension of myself, so his ideal living condition is linked to mine, and that's that. His growling comes from insecurity, basically. He seems and acts tough. He's very insecure. He sees any new foster dog as a potential threat. A threat to his space, but mainly to the portion of food he's entitled to. And the fact that I have managed to foster tons of dogs over the years and have them live in his face, in his house, with his mummy, seems crazy. But it has been very possible, and because of him, very challenging and also very enjoyable. And come to think of it, this is how this video is going to go. It's going to be full of despites and all those. Despite everything weird about him, anything normal is actually possible with him. Like, despite the fact that he seems to be a cat hater, and during the first years I used to think that it would be impossible for me to bring a cat home. He has ended up living with 3 permanent cats and occasional foster cats.
Can't believe you were once just like anyone else. Then you grew and became like the devil himself. Pray to God I can think of a nice thing to say, but I don't think I can. Fuck you anyway.
I've had those 3 cats since they were babies. I found them, raised them, kept them, and sometimes I just try to walk in their shoes and imagine a life where someone like Apollo is what you grow up with and take for granted and have no other choice but to consider family. I mean, they've known him since the day they were born, almost. And it's no wonder absolutely no dog I bring in here ever scares them. I mean, it doesn't get worse than what they're used to. His cat issues and many of his other issues basically come down to one thing. He is a bully. And that's all. He's just a bully. His insecurity forces him to have a facade of, I'm gonna show you all, keep away, I'm so tough, you're just trying to stop me. But underneath this facade, there's nothing there. It's just a bloated insecurity, a defense mechanism against things, living and non-living, that he perceives as threats and shows his teeth to. I absolutely adore his teeth. They have a mind of their own. They're very capable of killing, but they're mainly there for show-off. Sometimes showing his teeth is a way of showing he's in a playful mood, which is often. And after years of living with him, I've grown to adore what I'd normally be afraid of. So I use them for my amusement, and generally, he's an amusing dog. He's never boring. No matter what he does, he's never boring. From his curtain fetish to his teeth to the many, many faces he has, Apollo is many things, but boring isn't one of them. He basically wears his heart in his sleeve. It's just that it's a stupid heart. He can't hide the slightest thing about what he's feeling in a certain moment. Seriously, when God was handing out poker faces, he ducked. I look at him and know exactly what he's feeling, and he has a lot of feelings all of the time that he makes obvious. If he was an actor, I would say he was overacting. He's bitten me badly once, and it was totally my fault. He was sound asleep, and I leaned over to give him a kiss, because I'm an idiot, and I felt entitled enough to break the one rule one should never break: let sleeping dogs lie. So as he got startled, the first thing that popped up in his insecure, half-asleep brain was to feel threatened, and his glorious teeth immediately obeyed that one-of-a-kind brain. The moment his teeth hit my face, he woke up for good and took a step back, and if he could talk at that moment, he would say something like, sorry, not sorry, it was totally your fault. His barking is ridiculous sometimes. It is ridiculously loud and ridiculously annoying, but he has a different bark for every emotion. There's the annoyed bark, the get out of my face bark, the I'm gonna kill you now bark, the stranger danger bark, the excitement bark, the impatient bark, the you're my friend bark, the I'm so happy to meet you bark, and I can tell them apart so well that these 10 years of living with him have offered me more information about dog language than I ever thought existed. Just as he has many barks and many faces and many emotions, he has many, many fears. He's gun-shy, and that includes every single noise that resembles to the slightest a sharp bang, click, or snap. As a result, he's hiccup-shy, nail-clipper-shy, burp-shy, and chewing gum bubble-blowing shy. So at home, we don't burp, we don't hiccup, we clip our nails in a different room, and when we chew a gum, we never blow bubbles. For a couple of years, he grew a fear of spaghetti also, but he's gotten over that because he's a foodie. Generally, his attitude is, this is my body, it's mine, can't touch. You can imagine what a vet visit is like with him. It takes 3-4 people to hold him down just so that a sacrificial vet can check the slightest thing in his precious body. I come out of the examination room blushed, panting, with people staring at me, wondering if we just mutilated a dog in there without anesthesia. When I want to take him to the vet, I usually take a couple of other dogs with me to sandwich the experience. So the vet gets to examine one normal dog, then see their lives pass before their eyes while they're examining Apollo, and then examine another normal dog and hopefully forget what had just happened. He is very healthy. And it's become sort of a joke how not even diseases want to be around him. Every time my guilt makes me want to go and have him tested because he's getting old after all and he's tested and there's nothing wrong with him. And then I blame him for making me waste money. I do dread the moment when something will be wrong with him, when his age starts showing. He's hurt himself a few times. Once a thorn got in his eye, another time he hurt his leg going crazy up on the mountain, and he was attacked by a pack of strays a couple of years ago. They nearly killed him. But he's never had any issues related to age. This past year he pants more. He pants heavily as he roams the mountain going all crazy. I can hear his breath coming out very heavy. I look at him up there and wish he never gets old. I wish he would just collapse and die one day over there as he's running free up on the mountain. That is the happiest he can ever be. When he's there, he's fearless. His technique when he's up on the mountain pretending to be hunting is to run around and bark at things he thinks he smells.
After the new day's mist, I run. Out from the new day's mist, I come. I hunt, therefore I am. Harvest the land, taking of the fallen lamb.
He has a GPS tracker on and I love watching his route. I can't have a poetic moment or a moment of peace when I'm anywhere in nature with him. It's just noise from his excited barking and constant fear that at any moment he will do something really embarrassing, like bully a cyclist or bully a random guy walking with a very threatening walking stick. He sounds and looks so threatening, and I run behind him screaming at people who are pissing their pants to ignore him because he's just an idiot and he won't hurt them. But they don't believe me. And I'm ridiculed. And after years of dealing with that, the places where he can be let loose are getting less and less. The only thing we have left now is the mountain in my hometown. A couple of times he's had beef with shepherds, because when he sees a flock of sheep, he goes bananas as if they're the most threatening thing ever. But he's friends with the sheepdogs, which are the types of dogs that normally everyone should be afraid of. But Apollo meets them up on the mountain and he makes friends with them and occasionally humps them. That was a lie. He almost always humps them and I am so embarrassed. He's got a sweet tooth, a savory tooth, and a garbage tooth. Generally, he's a foodie, maybe more than any dog I've ever met. Food is very important. It's so important that I have to mop the floor twice a day. By the time his meal is ready, there's a little pool of drool in front of his feet, and once I forgot to mop it, stepped on it, and nearly broke my back. Given that, as I said, his body is his body, he's not a tender dog. He doesn't really enjoy being touched. And when I want to annoy him, I smoosh him and watch the feeling of absolute disgust form on his face. But the last year, he's grown some new habits. I won't say he's become tender, because he hasn't, but he's developed his own type of interaction with me that involves touching, but on his own terms.
Είσαι πολύ τρυφερός, φίλος του πόλη. Όταν ο Θεός μοίραζε τρυφερότητα, εσύ έσκυψες.
Maybe that's his idea of being tender. Given that he will never enjoy the type of petting the average dog does, I get what he can give me and make the most of it. And sometimes, very rarely, after a session of Mortal Kombat, he falls asleep next to me or on my lap. It took him nearly 9 years, but he did manage to finally give me what I always wanted, to sleep with him. I can go on forever, because his issues never end. But every issue he has, as I said, comes with a however. Like, for example, his barking gets on your nerves sometimes, but because he's a foodie and willing to learn any command for food, I've taught him to silent bark when he wants something. It's a win-win.
Mila. Bravo, bravo.
Another example, he did bite my friend's dog who was spending Christmas with us in my hometown, which was totally her fault because she ran happily in front of him. How dare she? However, apart from that incident, they spent a couple of fun days together and they've continued to interact in a friendly way. His blame shifting is ridiculous. He's hurt or annoyed with something and he immediately redirects his anger to whoever is near him. If I'm walking him and other dogs and he gets hurt from something, he will turn around and bully them as if it was their fault. Once, as we were putting his harness on, he stepped back and hurt his ass on the corner of the coffee table and immediately turned and bit my partner's leg that was standing next to him. However, his blame shifting lasts seconds, and he immediately forgives and forgets whoever he had blamed. He makes the life of my foster dogs a living hell, at least for the first few days. However, I have been fostering for 10 years now, and I have never ever had any actual problems. People who sort of know him can't understand how this is happening, but for me, it's very simple. Loving him and getting to know him has been a constant challenge, but also a constant reward for every obstacle we've managed to overcome. He's fear aggressive, food aggressive, water aggressive, bed aggressive, sniff aggressive. If he walks with another dog and one of them dares to sniff the same piece of grass he is sniffing, he will growl and bully because that was his smell. He smelled it first. But as I said, this shit lasts seconds and then he's back to normal again. Yes, he doesn't like to be touched, which creates all sorts of issues when you need to clip his nails or take him to the vet. However, the fact that he doesn't like to be touched has made our communication expand instead of diminish. He responds to verbal commands better than any of the dogs I've ever had. Because I couldn't touch him a lot, I learned to talk to him and he learned to listen because he does want to communicate. He really wants it. So I get to explain situations to him only by talking, and I get him to do things I want him to do, like get off the couch if it's time to get off the couch, only by talking. And there's never misunderstandings. The moral of the story is, I guess, that despite everything mentioned above, Apollo is a normal dog with millions of issues, and I can share an everyday life with a dog with millions of issues. Focusing on every single one of his problems paints a picture of a very difficult dog and a very difficult living situation, but it isn't. As a whole, Apollo is a very easy dog to live with. He's always been house-trained. He's always spent most of the day in his bed asleep. He's nearly excellent on a leash. He wakes up, waits for his walk, comes back, eats food, sleeps, takes his evening walk, eats again, maybe plays, gets a treat and sleeps. And the next day he repeats the same routine, and it's been like that for the past 10 years. And it has been easy. In our relationship, Apollo as an individual has been allowed to make a big deal out of things that feel a big deal to him. Everyone should be allowed that. Him and his issues are acknowledged and respected, but he has an environment created around him that allows him to bounce back all the time. That makes life with him as a whole good, steady, and easy. Tainted with a million tiny imperfections, he is, at the end of the day, a perfect dog, and a dog I trust. I trust him more and more every day because I get to know him more and more every day. And with every layer of his complexity that I peel off, I get to know him even more. At this point, there's nothing he will do that I don't expect, and there's nothing I will do that he doesn't expect. That's how much trust there is. And every day I love him more. I don't love him despite of all his issues, but because of them. I love and accept the entirety of this dog, and he's balanced and happy because of that. I think what I'm trying to say is give a problematic dog a chance. It might be easier than you think and less challenging than what you have in mind. And I don't by any chance mean that one should allow a dog's issues to become the entirety of their existence. But between perfection and mayhem, there is a balance that can be achieved with difficult dogs. You can call it training, you can call it commitment, you can call it acceptance. It's basically all of those things. The best description I can think of is that what you basically do is allow a dog to be himself, acknowledging him and his flaws, not setting him up for a failure, and developing the communication skills that will help you explain to him in a language that he understands what some of the conditions of him sharing a home with you are. With some of those conditions, he might agree. With some, he might not, but eventually you will meet halfway because at the end of the day, you both want to live together. The perfect dog for someone might be a dog with many imperfections, but they will be imperfections that can make the relationship better, not worse. And that is magical.